Hello, and if you are watching the video, welcome to another episode of Five Alarm Task Force. I'm your host, Steve Green. Happy to be here with you and happy to have you with us. And if you're listening on the audio, welcome back to the show. We're glad to have you as well. And I am so happy to announce today's guest. We were just talking off air. He's one of those guests who's been on several times, and we become friends, though we've never met. We almost had a chance, I guess, in the years that I was flying up to Madison in the fall for the high holiday, up to Appleton for the high holidays, but we didn't know each other then. There were no such thing as podcasts then. But he has been on the show, and his name is Aaron Zamzow. He is with the Madison Fire Department, and he's going to give you a little bit of bio and the background. But if you're talking about firefighter fitness and wellness and overall health, the top three people I can think of is Aaron and Chief Dan Kerrigan and Captain Jim Moss. These three, over my years of doing this research for my guests and being on the podcast, these three are the standout people. And it's, Jim was on this past June with his book, Firefighter Success Book, which has been a big hit. And I'm so glad to welcome Aaron back to the show and even on video. I think this is the first time we've done the video conference. Right?
I think so. So it's good to be able to see. Maybe last time we did it also, but I'm not sure. I think like we were just talking, like I've been on 4 times or
this is your fourth time,
over the last couple of years, and it's just like we were off air talking for about a half an hour, just catching up, and
exactly.
And I think that's really. I'm super happy to be here just because it's kind of like, hey, we send emails, how you doing, and social media, so it's kind of our own, our podcast family. And thanks for having me. You'd mentioned, like, I've been in the fire service now. It was when you said that, I was like, God, how long have I been in here? I've been in with Madison. I'm going on my 13th year there. And then I was on call, paid, a volunteer for about almost 8 to 10 years before that. So over 20 years in the fire service. And then before I got involved in the fire service, I worked with pro athletes. I worked with general population and fitness, worked in really large health clubs. And then I had my own little company training. And then, once I got involved in the fire service, I kind of was able to merge both of my passions into fire rescue fitness. And here we are today, still talking about it and loving both. Just got promoted, actually, or I'm in the process of being promoted with the fire department, going up to lieutenant.
Lieutenant, so, congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
Well deserved.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It's new challenges, and it was time. It was a tough process, but I'm happy to kind of, just add that different mindset, and but health and fitness still stays the focus, probably even more so now. I think you're trying to set the example a little bit more now more than ever, and which we need now more than ever, I think, in the fire service. When you look at the plethora of health issues that we were just talking about that we're facing now, I think they've always been there, but man, now with data and research, and there's more focus on first responders now, and which is great. I think being in the fire service, I look around and I would see those things, and you would see those things, but now to get confirmation as far as that data and that push behind more mental health, behavioral health, fitness, and cancer, and it's great to get that awareness, but now we got to do something about it, right?
Right.
Like, comes down to that, and that's kind of both of our focus and mission in a way.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Educating and motivating our fellow brothers and sisters to try to improve their health and fitness,
right.
Which is what we'll talk about today.
Right. I was just, I've been very lucky over the past year and a half, a couple of years, to be accepted and become a part of the PFAS action group. I've had many of the leaders of that on the show. Dr. Graham Peasley, who's done all the research, has been on a couple of times, and there's an invite open now because of new research that's just come out. And we feel that we want to bring the guests onto the show who can teach our family, our firefighting family. And yes, when I use the word, I damn well mean family, because that's the way I see the
right.
fire service. That to teach them how to keep themselves safe and as healthy as possible. Look, we all know there's risk on this job. From the day you start, you have to say, yes, there's risk on this job.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get over that line and you focus on who you're going to be as a firefighter, or who you want to be as a firefighter, and what you want to attain, you kind of push that to the back corner, and you don't let it, ride you every day you show up for your shift or you answer a call as a volunteer. Just do what that passion is driving you to do. Do it well. Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Be the best person and firefighter that you can be.
Yeah, I think we're unfortunately though, we're really good at serving others. Like we're very good at helping others. We're really horrible at doing it to ourselves or for ourselves, right? Like, and I think that's also, it's true for parenting and parents. A lot of times they'll give a lot of themselves to sacrifice for their children.
Sure.
We sacrifice a lot for our communities, and we have to step back a little bit and go, there is a certain point that in balance that we need to find, because I am a much better first responder when I take some time for myself mentally, physically, and plan nutritionally. I can provide better service to those that I want to provide that for when I take a little time and do that, take time for myself. And it's a tough concept for us to get as first responders, because we're in this a lot of times because we want to help people and we want to give. And if you watch, especially now, there's a lot of overtime. There's EMTs, there's paramedics, there's firefighters that are working overtime because of, our other brothers and sisters get COVID or get sick or, have to be pulled from the line. And cumulatively, though, we're actually really hurting ourselves in the long run.
Right.
And we also get, there's a lot of times where our compassion meter, as we like to call it in the field, sometimes goes down because you're working all these hours and you've just seen call after call and person after person, and it wears on you. And I think back in the day, nobody ever talked about that. It's like, this is your job, just shut up and do your job.
Yep.
Well, you look at NFL athletes, right? Over the course of 19 weeks or 18 weeks, their bodies start to break down. And coaches now have this realization that I need to sit my guys and my or my gals, whatever your team is, you have to sit them and rest them a little bit to make them perform better when really needed. And we need to have that same concept personally, within the fire services. We need to, know when we need to find balance and know how to, optimal, be at our best. And sometimes that means, taking a little extra time for yourself, but we're not good at that, and it sounds to us selfish in a way, right? No, I joined the fire service to give back to others. Well, in order to give to others, you got to take care of yourself.
Serve yourself first.
Yep. And again, I say that, I'm not very good at it, but I'm getting better. Because I really, now that the research and the more I read and the more I talk to people, the more I see it, that look, 30 minutes a day working on your fitness, 3 minutes a day working on your mental health, 10 minutes a day planning out your nutrition will give you more energy, actually give you that time back because you're more efficient and make you that much better of a first responder throughout your career. But sometimes it's just easier just to give.
Right. So you mentioned something off air before we started that in all our conversations and emails and communication you've never mentioned before, is that when you started, you really weren't the prime health example of a firefighter.
No.
And so please tell the story that you just told me, because I think it's going to ring true for so many.
We were talking about, when I talk about, service, right? And hey, you got to take time to, work on your fitness and work on your health. Well, a lot of people look at me probably and have said this. They're like, well, it's easy for you. This is what you do. And what they don't realize is it's not easy for me. Naturally, I am not a very good firefighter. And what I mean by that is, if you're listening to this and you work in a department or you work at a district or whatever, there are people that are very good at it. LeBron James is a very good, talented basketball player. Not saying that he doesn't work hard. It's just he's naturally gifted, right? There are members on fire departments that can do this job really well. They can fly up ladders. They can climb and carry certain things. They do the job very well physically. And it seems effortless. And for some, on that first bottle, it might be. Where fitness really comes in, I believe, is that second bottle. And as the call prolongs, right, that's where your fitness really takes over. When I first got involved in the fire service, I was training athletes. I was working as a personal trainer. I thought I was in great shape. I was getting my butt kicked by, guys and gals were able to fly up ladders. They were able to hoist ladders better. They were able to carry stuff more efficiently and effectively than I was able to, because that's what they did for a job in a lot of cases. I had one of my dear friends. I remember he'd fly up the ladder, and he was able to really sledge, and he was doing all these things and carrying stuff up ladders a lot more efficiently than me. And he went to go have a cigarette. And me being the kind of a guy coming in fitness, I'm like, how in the hell is he able to do that better than me? And so that's when I really started to evaluate, all right, what is training for the fire service? How does that relate back to, the playing fields, right? When I would train with my NFL athletes, I wouldn't train my defensive backs the same way I would train, linemen. Same thing in the NBA, different positions train a little bit differently, different sports train differently. And so that's when I started to realize, I need to work more smart, more functionally, because I'm kind of like Rudy, right? Like I'm not very talented. I got to work twice as hard to do that job. And that's kind of where I got this mindset of, I'll keep up with you that first bottle. You can naturally beat me. That's fine. But that second bottle, I'm going to get you because of fitness, because of training more properly. And that's what started FRF. My first program was really for me. All these programs are for me. I've used them and had to use them as my career has progressed, as I've gotten older. Now I'm 48. I started different programming based off of, when COVID hit, I didn't have a gym like everyone else. So I created a program that was body weight based to keep my fitness levels up. When I felt like I needed to add a little bit of muscle, I created a super strong program. When I needed to improve mobility and work more functionally, shoulders, joints, and back, I created what's called the Hero X program. It's just that it works more mobility and metabolic processes. So the whole thing of FRF has really traced my challenges through the fire service over the last 15 years. Nobody really knows that. They just think, oh, you talk about fitness all the time. It's easy for you. You know what you're supposed to do. Well, that doesn't mean I'm necessarily the best at doing it. I was telling you that sometimes I start my presentations by telling people, look, I crush ice cream sometimes. I like tequila. Last night I had a steak. Now I don't do that every single day. I plan when I can do my cheats, as I like to call them, and I don't let that one day turn into 4 years. Monitor my health, but I have the same challenges I think everybody else does, and so going back to my Rudy story, he's the guy that was a walk-on at Notre Dame, and he had to work really, really hard because he wasn't naturally good at that. And so my Rudy is work ethic and proper training, and that's what keeps me, going. And I've been on a truck company now for 9 years. Now that I'm getting promoted, I'm off the truck company, and they push me wherever they need to go. But my firefighters underneath me, one was a Division I wrestler, the other one is just a super strong human being, and so for me, I had to keep up. And I believe too, set the example, because these guys, they were younger and they really liked to push weight around, but they were noticing that they weren't maintaining mobility, and that when we would do our drills, the old guy had a lot a lot more air left in his bottle than the young guys did. And as much as they never, well, yeah, that it bothered, because they would be doing a lot more cardio and more interval training. So, so that's really the story. FRF started out of necessity, and that's what keeps it going today. Is every new program that I come up with is just based off of kind of my own needs, and it's been a great fun. For me, it's kept me doing this, and it's working.
Well, I think one of the things that I've learned from you over the years that you've been a guest and a friend is the fact that sometimes we take too narrow a focus on what personal fitness is, especially for this job.
Mm-hmm.
It's unique. A lot of jobs that require physical work, a lot of people work in offices, and that's good, and they go to gyms, and that's fine for them. But our job as public servants in fire rescue and EMS, I remember when I had to go to the hospital a year ago, and the boys from down the street came to pick me up, and they had the hydraulic.
Yeah, the cots are great.
Cots,
yes.
Yeah. And I started laughing and said, "What are you laughing about? I got to take you to the hospital." I said, "I'm just thinking that all you had to do was push a button, and I slide right into the back of the rescue." He goes, "Well, what did you do?" I said, "Oh, I got four guys. I got 4 guys to come in and lift the patient up. I mean, that's what we had to do it. I was telling somebody yesterday, my first defib on the EMS rig when I was hired by EMS also weighed 45 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a, I think it was called the number 4 at that time. Then they went up to the Life Pack 5. But that was, and of course, as the low man on the totem pole, grab
you're always carrying it,
and the med box, so you carry that.
Yep.
So I think it's unique for us.
It is, yeah. But as much as the the defibs got lighter, but now we carry more stuff because there's more. We are continually doing more and more in the field. Being EMT, being paramedics, and I mean, we're continually just, there's new stuff being developed. There's new, technology, and there's new resources, but it just seems like we just keep packing more stuff into our bags, right? Because of the different scenarios that we now encounter. And, and the funny part about the cots are great, but they do break down. And it's funny, when they do break down, you go back to how do we get that? Well, you got to just lift it. That's the way we used to do it. and you still have to be ready for that, just for that scenario, and it just seems too like the cots are a great, because it does take some load off our backs, but we still have that patient that's trapped typically between the toilet and the bathtub on the second floor after they get out of the shower, Right. And you're having to carry down through homes where they're narrow hallways. There's a lot of clutter, so we're constantly having to
adapt and overcome.
Yeah, and train for that, right? Like people always go, well, how do you train for that? Well, if you're functional, meaning if you're able to move more efficiently, especially through we call the transverse plane, twisting and carrying through there, you're going to be better adapting to that particular environment. And the cot's great because it, over the course of a day, you're lifting that cot 20 times. It helps you, but we still have to get that person down there, and you still have to, stepping up onto the rig. I counted the other day because I'm a nerd, 82 times. I'm stepping up 16 inches up on the rig, and then another 14 to get up in there. But if you're carrying bags doing that, right? If you're wearing your heavy gear, you have to really make sure that you train for that. That's our playing field. That simple step up, people don't think about. Well, if you have a restriction in your knees or your hips, that step up comes from your low back. So you have to flex your low back to get your leg up that far. That's stuff that I look at because that's kind of where my trained mind goes. But then I try to go, okay, you need to be able to do a knee hug. like a simple standing on one leg, bring your knee up to your chest, hold it and balance, because you do that 82 times a shift. And to become more efficient at that movement helps transfer onto performance. And so, yeah, I think we're starting to look at the big picture a little bit better as a, as a fire service. I've had a lot of conversations with chiefs lately about, okay, there's no denying we need to have resources for our members, because what do we do in the fire service? When you look at fitness, we just go to whatever the newest trend is, right? So,
right.
P90X was a big trend. CrossFit was a big trend. Now Peloton is a big trend. We just, because that's what's surrounding us, and we figure, well, that's going to get me in shape, which it will, but that's not the best shape for what we do, right? And you had mentioned, if you got an office job and you go do CrossFit and you jack up your shoulder, you walk into the office carrying your coffee mug down here with a story. Great. I was trying to, hang clean, 300 pounds, 17,000 times, or, I was wrestling an alligator and I got my shoulder, right? That's great if you work in an office job. If you work on the line and you can't work on the line, you're crabby. You are not you are not in a good mindset, because now you're injured and now you have to work with the chiefs, and nobody wants to do that, right? And so you realize that, unfortunately, in that moment when you're like, God, I wish I would have trained a little bit smarter. And so that's kind of my whole philosophy, and that's what I started. That's why we started with FRF, and that's really what we try to relay on to the rest of the fire service, that you got to look at things a little differently, and you got to look at big picture, and just train more for what the job is. Even though we got a motorized cot, which is what your original point was, right? We got that motorized cot, but you still got to get them there. You still got to be able to know what to do when the cot doesn't work, because the battery doesn't work all the time, right? And then you still got to be able to step up into the rig, and all that stuff can wear on your body if you're not mobile enough, strong enough, functional enough.
Well, what you mentioned, something that is very true for me right now. I started back in October. Was it October? Yeah, October. I spoke with my pain management physician, and I said, "What do you think about me doing some PT?" Again, I haven't done it in a long time, and they have a PT department in this practice. And he said, "Where do you want to do it?" I said, "I'd like to do it right here." He goes, "Well, why do you want to do it here?" I said, "Well, I know Tracy. She's helped me with the two belts that we fitted me for, and you're going to be writing the script for it, and you're going to be supervising, because you help supervise the PT area. So, and you can tell her what you think I need the most, plus their evaluation." And so it's been about a month now, and I do 1 day a week, we call the land work, which is upstairs and twisting and ball balance. I mean, stuff that some of the stuff I've never done before, but she sees exactly my movement problems with my back on both sides. And she just knows how to target it without overdoing it. And then 1 day a week, it's in the pool. They have a built-in pool downstairs, and I do an hour's worth of different exercises she gives me down there with pool gloves, and I'm doing back this way, and I'm doing up and down, and I have these barbells, pool barbells that I swing this way. And I've had a problem, and especially even in this chair, which is supposed to be an orthotic chair, but I still leaned over too much, and my shoulders hunch. And of course, I'm getting older. I'll be 70 next month. But
damn, that gravity, right? Pulls us down.
But I'm finding myself being more aware of how I sit, how I approach my desks for typing, the two desks here in this office, and trying to do better, and trying to do most of those I don't overdo it, because I don't want to reverse progress. I've been dealing with this now since '92, this back injury and this disability. So I wanted to do something that I know nothing is going to cure what I have. It can't be taken away. But I wanted to do something that would help me feel better and be a little bit more, not active necessarily, but to be a little bit, I guess, a little bit more fit within my own home.
Yeah, you got to manage it.
Yeah,
You want to be able to manage it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
I really enjoyed, because of her knowledge, I've really enjoyed this new therapy session that I'm
Yeah.
in. And I think that, my wife's seen a difference. And I think what it's also happening is, as we talked about before with this mystery malady for, 15 months, which weighs very heavily, we talked about behavioral health and it's very frustrating,
Mm-hmm.
very frustrating to go 15 months, 5 or 6 physicians, specialists, and nobody can tell me what it is. They can only tell me what it isn't.
Right.
But that doesn't help me improve my health. That's the problem.
No.
So it's very frustrating, mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
And even, I should be embarrassed, but I'm not. My wife said to me the other day, maybe it's time you talk with somebody.
Yes.
And so as it so happened, running an errand with my good friend the other day, he has a neighbor across the street who's visually impaired, and he needed to go to Lowe's to make an exchange. So we took him in the car, and I noticed when we walk into Lowe's, he knows so much about plumbing, and he knew about this and that and wood. And I riding back, I said, Don, what have you done that? I mean, you know so much. He goes, well, see, I was a pipe fitter, I was a plumber, I was an electrician. He did a couple of things. He goes, and now I'm a psychotherapist. So I said, really? He goes, yeah. I said, I think
Let's talk.
you and I will have to talk. And he said, anytime, Steve. So
yeah,
he lives right across the street from my good friend, that's the guy who called me just as we were starting the show. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make time, just go over, sit in his house, and wear our masks, and I'll just open up.
just talk. Yeah.
Just talk it out.
Well, you brought up such a good point, because I think what you've experienced, on a level of hey, you got your health challenge, right? And you're just trying to work through that over the last 15 months. I think that the great analogy is that we in the fire service have that same, like, over the last 15, probably almost 2 years now, have had that same challenge. But it's COVID, it's the pandemic, and not to take away from what you're experiencing, but I think, like, a lot of us in the first responder realm, like, that cumulative, right? Like you were talking about, at first there's hope, and there's, okay, this is how we're going to get through this, and we can all buckle down for a certain amount of time. But after that time goes through, right, now the stress starts to accumulate, and we're busy trying to just manage day to day, call to call, situation to situation, in this case, memo to memo, test to test, quarantine to quarantine if you're a first responder, and all of that stuff cumulatively adds up mentally, right? So we can work out, we could stay active, and that's great. That's one of the best ways, actually, to combat that. What all the research points to is, look, fitness is the cure for the fire service. I'm 100% adamant on that cancer is now coming in and being talked about a lot. Mental health, behavioral health is talked a lot. We already know that we have heart disease and stroke, but the one thing that can drastically improve all of those conditions is fitness. And I do also believe, though, that part of fitness physically is there is a mental side of that. And what the research has really showed there too, and why I bring this together is, now with FRF, I have a new program. I have a 40-day challenge for the fire service that I believe personally every first responder, every firefighter, EMT should go through, because it's a challenge for you to implement in not only fitness into your day, whether every 7 days a week. And people go, well, you shouldn't work out 7 days a week. And I go, you're exactly right. Recovery is part of it. Whether that's just some simple stretches, whether that's going into a corner and doing some deep breathing, whether that's planning your fitness for the week, that's part of it. So there's fitness, there is nutrition, hydrating, eating your vegetables, making sure you get the right nutrients. And then there's the mental health component, where even 3 minutes a day. And what my challenge is to have every first responder take 3 minutes out of their day, go take 30 deep breaths in a corner by yourself, or keep a gratitude journal. Or there are some really great just like videos on YouTube. Just follow along a 3-minute video. It could be taking your dog for a walk, something that you do to really ground you, that you need to do every single day. Like with me, I go and I foam roll in the workout room for 3 to 5 minutes with the lights off, actually. And that started, the joke behind it is we have these these lights that turn off. And I was working out and I wasn't by a sensor, and all of a sudden the light turns off and I'm down there stretching and I'm like, hey, this isn't so bad actually. So I made it part of my everyday. When I'm at the firehouse, I just take 3 minutes and I just go off into a corner and I'll do just a little bit of foam rolling, deep breath, a little thought. But that needs to be part of our everyday evolution, as does fitness, as does nutrition, and this mental health, because we don't understand how all of that accumulation over the last couple of years has really played into us. It comes out in different ways, probably the way that we treat our loved ones, our significant others, and how we respond, how we think, how we even talk at the morning table. I think a lot of times that's, the cumulative effect can really wear on our whole mental attitude and how we approach things. And so, my I shouldn't say new initiative, but part of even FRF is just taking a little time every single day to focus on those things around you, and ask yourself, how am I feeling? Right? Because as you just point out, like your wife, someone's close to you, she sees the difference. Oh, yeah. You live it every single day. You're just trying to maintain, you're just trying to get through. And, if you're sitting there taking this self-evaluation and you're like, man, I am crabby all the time. I'm not patient with my kids. I'm not patient with my patients. Then it's time to hey, go talk to somebody, right? Like, and I'll be the first to tell you, I've gone through counseling numerous times, through divorce, through really bad calls. And every year I call my guy up and I'm like, hey, let's go talk. And it's great when they look at me and they go, you know what? This is great. I'm glad you came in. Everything's good. I mean, but they're also trained to identify some things where, those that are around you aren't. And, they may see the other side of stuff. But I just think that you brought up a really important point, that fitness really helps with mood. Fitness, consistent fitness, the research shows it can combat depression. They're finding that fitness now is a part of almost every single chemical abuse and substance abuse treatment program, because of the endorphins that can come off, can bring forth. They're finding that PTSD and fitness, there's a huge link between getting unstuck, they say, getting through a particular moment that you have that PTSD with. Fitness can help bring you through that. Fitness, of course, we know combats cancer. Fitness, we know combats heart disease. It combats, it lowers your instances of stroke. But, the mental health side of that too is not being talked about. And until now, so we're talking about it now. But what a great way, I think, for people to start to realize that, right? Like, hey, through stress, this fitness, taking a little bit of time for myself, and then, we'll talk a little bit about nutrition too, but it's really the way to get through this. And COVID and the data is really now pointing to that. It's whether or not people listen to it or not. That's the other question, right?
Absolutely. And we have to keep the information apolitical. We have to just work with facts and science, and that, it doesn't matter if you're red, blue, yellow, green, but it doesn't matter which party. This is not about politics. This is about keeping us physically and mentally and emotionally at our best. And that's the most important thing. All right, so folks, we're going to take a break here. If you're watching the video, you won't see anything different. If you're listening to the audio, that we'll come up, take a little break, and have a couple of public service announcements. We'll be back. And when we come back with Aaron, we're going to talk about nutrition. We're going to talk about his new direction with FRF. There's a new app available
There is.
for it.
Yep.
And boy,
Yep.
let me tell you something. This app is not just for little one-on-one stuff. What he'll lay out for you will be amazing. And there's new competition coming up as well. So we'll
I
be
had a
right.
challenge going on. Yep.
Another challenge, right? So we'll be right back
Right.
with my guest, Aaron Zamzow, right after these words. As always, please stay tuned. That was excellent. That was great. Great.
I love how we segue. I hope you don't mind that I used that. I mean, I
No,
thought that was
no, it's
perfect
fine.
time.
No, that was
Yeah.
great. I wanted to bring it up for that reason because, yes, I have calls that still bother me. Yeah. I've been out since 85, but I still remember those calls.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about probably the worst one, with my wife the other night for dinner, and I had tears in my eyes again and that was the first real bad call I had in the department. And the driver of the engine, who was one of the 3 day, we call them caretakers, they 24 on, 24 off. Their job was to make sure they got the first piece of apparatus out the door with the first volunteers that showed up, especially at night. So one of them was Roger, was our mentor. He took my buddy Rich and I, and my buddy is still my best friend 40 some odd years later. He's still working in further north in Florida, one of the other counties, as a chief pilot. And he took us under our wing. And this other guy, Bruce, another really nice guy, caretaker, and would help us from time to time, a lot of joking around. And he drove that night, and no other officer showed up. So it was just my buddy and me. So Bruce said, Steve, get up, get in the right seat. And because the chief was screaming, remember the old Chevy pickup trucks that had the gas tank with a cap right behind the driver?
Yeah.
So this
flare sides, or was it a flare fender too?
I don't know if it was a flare fender. I don't think it was that, because this is back in 78.
Okay.
And but he was intoxicated. He lost control of the vehicle, turned over on the left side. The cap came off. The sparks ignited the flame, and the car was ripping. And the chief lived right up the street from there. One of our firefighters lived in a home not nearby, so he brought out his extinguisher, and the chief dumped 3 extinguishers. He was screaming, "Get me an engine company!" So Rich and I were there, and Bruce was driving. He says, "Get up, Steve. You get up in the right seat. We're heading out there." And the chief's yelling, "Don't lay into the hydrant. We'll do a reverse light. Get me water now. I want water now." And we got up there, and I told Rich, I said, "You pull the nozzle in the loops. I'll get behind you. I'll straighten the spaghetti, and I'll be get right behind you." We had 500 gallons, and we used it to the last drop, and we got the fire. Unfortunately, he was still alive when we first got there, and he was screaming in that car, in that truck. And we got the fire out just as EMS arrived. They were the only ones in those days who had the Hearst tool. We didn't have them in the departments. It was the ops director of county EMS who had it. And we got him out, and he lived for 3 days in the burn unit, and then sadly passed. But when the adrenaline's rushing through, you do your job and you get it done. You don't think about that horrible smell or anything like that. You hear the scream, the sound, right? And so we packed up, we finished. One of our other firefighters, that guy Roger, who was our mentor, happened to live at that time right across the street from the chief. So he ran up in bare feet, because we were just into the intersection. He ran up and grabbed the 3-inch. That was our LDH in those days.
Yeah,
3-inch hose. But he ran it probably about 600 feet to the hydrant. Because we would have had to make a U-turn. We have to lay into the hydrant and then U-turn to get to the car. And he didn't want that. The chief wanted water, and he wanted it right away.
Yeah.
Talk about fast water today. And this is what he wanted. So how we got it down in just 500 gallons, no foam, no CAS in those days or anything like that. Just plain water. I mean, we had AFFF, but we didn't pull it for this engine. I mean, we just didn't do it. We just thought it was a car fire, And that call, Rich and I, every time we're together, we relive that call together. We talk about it.
Yeah.
So we got back to the station, cleaned up the engine, did everything, took off my bunker coat, went into the shower room, the restroom, and threw up, crying my eyes out. I mean, It was the worst thing. It was horrible. I stunk. I mean, that smell was
burnt skin.
The burnt skin. Yeah, burnt flesh. And I went out, finally washed my face and walked out, and Bruce was there, the driver. And he puts his arm around him and goes, "You okay?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Was it this call?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Suck it up."
That's what we did back
That's what
then.
we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Suck it up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, that doesn't relieve us of what we saw. I was able to interview a year and a half ago. I think it was Captain Moore from Oklahoma City. And he was the one in the picture carrying the little girl who had passed in the explosion at the Murrah.
Yeah. The bombing.
At the bombing.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody said, "What you did a great job. You did so much to try to help her and get her safety. And you are the hero," and stuff like that. And, he doesn't share that feeling,
No.
it's
No.
tough. And so I think that we're finally reaching a point where we're opening that envelope and saying we have to look inside. It's not just, physically, we can be, I always, in my class, the elephant in the firehouse, when ego gets in the way of passion. And, but we have to learn to open up. It's not just about the actions that we do. It's about what we have to live with.
Mm-hmm. And what we see.
What we see.
Yeah.
Right. We see what we don't want other people to ever have to see.
Right.
So
right. And I think military has really helped with that. I think it started, I think that's really where we started to realize, I think Vietnam, believe it or not, is what really got us to realize that, wait a minute, we're not treating those veterans. We're not doing them any good by telling them to suck it up. So what they did is they turned to drugs and alcohol. I mean, a majority of time. Yeah. And that's not right. But, we learn, I believe, and it's getting better. And, some of us still within the fire service still do that. And, that's just what happens. I get it. But, talking about it, I think is a great step towards it, and really preaching general health and wellness. All this whole package is really, been my mission, but now I just see it more clearly as this is the way to get through a lot of this stuff, right? Like, adding, and eventually, like with the app, I want to add counseling services to it. So like you can click on a tab and just says, click here to get in contact with a counselor. They give you, anonymously,
That'd be great.
And that's kind of what I'd like to do with it. I did include, and we could talk about it too. I included just some mental health resources,
let's do that. Yeah. Anything to do with that, I'd love to get out to the people so they hear it.
Sure.
They know that we're not just talking about the concept, that there's concrete behind it, And that's the strong thing. All right, good. All right, y'all set?
Yeah, buddy, good.
Yeah, so this will be the second segment. And that's where we'll do that. We'll finish up. All right, so here we go in 3. Okay, welcome back, folks. You may have caught some additional audio and video while Aaron and I were talking, supposedly off air, but I must have hit the button accidentally. But it was good information, and we're going to share more information along that line about our behavioral health. And as I said to somebody else and told them about what you just heard me talking about, that one call that still lives with me from 40 plus years ago, is that there's power in releasing the pain. And I think we're all too often afraid to release the pain. We think that it's part of what we have to suffer from. It's like, I'm sure in workout, work through the pain, push yourself through it. But that's not always the right answer, the right thing to do.
No, that's a great analogy. Your shoulder can only handle so much, until it breaks. And the same thing with your mind and your psyche. It can only handle so much until it starts to break down. And that's like I said, it's a great analogy. I think it's one that, being a truck guy, I can relate to. If you constantly are working your shoulder and you're not, working it properly or giving it time to rest, it's going to break down. Same thing with your mind and, mentally. If we don't find ways to recover, whether it be discussing it or taking some time to, like what we talked about before the break, just take 3 minutes a day and take some deep breaths and kind of get in connection with what you're thinking, what you're feeling, how, what is your mood? How are you responding? And especially in this day and age, you see it everywhere where people get so uptight about one political side or another political side or one view on this and one view on that. And what happens is that nobody ever breathes to listen or stops to listen. And it's, not to bring that into it, but I'm just talking about all the different noise that's out there. And then you add the stress of the job and the stress at home. And today, Susie and Bobby have to go to school, can't go to school, have COVID tests, have all these different things, and that we have to find ways to manage it. Now, I was talking before this that fitness is a great way to do it, but then mentally, we also have to find ways to give ourselves a break. And what we've done with, this new 40-day challenge that I came out with FRF is really, like, again, challenging you to incorporate in mental health, challenging you to incorporate in more vegetables, better hydration, challenging you to work out 7 days a week. Now, part of that workout is recovery, as we talked about. Part of that workout is just taking 15 minutes and setting up your workouts for the week and getting a better plan in place. But all of that is part of this big package. And that's why I feel like this 40-day challenge is one that it's about building good habits and utilizing those habits for not only 40 days, but building on them for a career, which will help you physically do the job better and mentally do the job better and mentally be able to handle these things, and that might even include, at some point, we might include in counseling services, like, what we were talking about off air is sometimes it's okay to talk. It's okay to just start talking with someone. Like, someone asked me about my counseling. I've done counseling off and on for years. And I believe every first responder should, whether they want to or not, because it's not like, tell me about your secrets, tell me about this. It's, let's just have a conversation. And these therapists are trained to identify some things and places to go. And all you have to do is sometimes just talk a couple sentences and listen a little bit, talk a little bit. And that's it. It's about having a conversation. It's nothing very in depth. Sometimes it can get more in depth. But I think that's all part of being healthy. That's all part about, being fit. That's all part about being your best, doing your best, being the best first responder, father, mother, sister, brother, whatever it is. That's all part of this. And that encompasses, total health and wellness, because holding that in is causing you stress that you may not necessarily identify with, but it may cause you to eat chocolate late at night. It may cause you to drink more than you want, which causes you to eat more than you want, which causes you to be heavier than you want, which causes you to get injuries more than you want. Like, all this really can play into each other. And,
Right.
And hopefully someone's reading this going, man, you're a little hokey. But if they take a step back and look at it and go, he might be a little crazy, but he could be onto something, and that's really all. That's what I'm doing this for. That's what you're doing
Right.
this for. Right?
Exactly. So let's talk about the new app coming that you have out, and then we'll talk about the new competition and see if we can get some interest from our viewers and listeners.
Would love to. So I, talking about this mental health, with Fire Rescue Fitness, we have workout programs, and a lot of my programs are 60 days or 40 days, and they're based off of a goal. So if you are trying to improve your performance, I have what's called the Ultimate Athlete. If you are trying to lose a little bit of weight, I have a fat loss program. If you are trying to improve your general health, wellness, mobility, work more efficiently, I have what's called the Hero X program. So all my programs are based off of a goal. And again, we touched on at one point that was my goal. So that's why I developed that program. And we had them on a platform where you could follow along with the workout online via mobile app. And it was a great starter. But I wasn't able to include resources on nutrition. I wasn't able to include resources on mental health or motivation. So I've always been searching and wanted my own platform where you can join a program, get it on the app, whether it be desktop, mobile, tablet, whatever it might be, and have access to recipes, have access to nutrition guidelines, have access to a meal plan guide. And now what I'm able to do on this new platform is, you can track the workout. You can actually change some of the exercises based off of what you have available. So if you only have a body weight access, like you don't have any equipment, you can change that exercise out, right? So let's say if I wanted you to do a dumbbell row and you don't have access to that, there's an alternative to do body weight. You can change the days based on your schedule. You also have a discussion board where you can ask questions, you can post motivations, and then you can actually send me a message right from the app that goes right to me. It says, "Hey, Zam, you're crazy, but how do I do this?" Whatever it might be. And then again, I'm also able to then throw in videos on questions that are commonly asked. I have one on form in there that I just did this morning. Someone asked about, how do I know I'm doing things with good form? So I did a one-on-one on form. And something that I'm really proud about is that I'm throwing in stuff about mental health. So if someone says, all right, so I'll buy what you're selling here for a moment. Okay, what are these 3 minutes? What do they look like? So I incorporated in links to, hey, here's a 3-minute video just on mindfulness. Here is a quick 1-2 on keeping a gratitude journal. A lot of times, we're at the firehouse table and we go down this rabbit hole of Chiefs don't do this and Chiefs don't do that and this guy did this and I don't like that, and it becomes this negative kind of ball or swallow, as I like to call it. And how one compliment, one positive statement can change that whole environment around. You do that with kids. I call it the Jedi mind trick. Yeah. Kids are in a really fussy mood. You say, hey, what do you like to eat? What's your favorite food? Ice cream. Well, when's the time you had ice cream that you really remember? Oh, I had it, next thing you know, the kid's in a better mood. Firefighters are pretty much the same thing, Talk about that time where you helped that one person, or talk about that one joke that was played, and you can change your whole environment. So we have those resources. All this is included now in this app that will be accessible. I mean, right now, the only way to get the app and the program is through this challenge. Eventually, all of my programs will be moved over onto the new platform. And as I'm moving them, I'm upgrading them. And, so the last 30 days I've been feverishly doing that. But I'm super excited about where I can take the resources and how I can really start to help people. Now, if you're still old school and like to print out workouts, you can do that from the app too. There's PDFs of all the different workouts. You can just print them out. And then you can also, if you're more new school, you like the app, you can follow them in the app. So it's been a great addition to what I'm trying to accomplish. And I'm super proud to get it out there.
So if they're interested in the competition, let's talk a little about that, what you're offering. Yep. I think it's important for them to understand that with your gifts to the winners, and by the way, folks, I've known Zam for several years now. I mean, this is our 6th year of the podcast, and we would think, as we said at the beginning, this is like his 4th appearance, but he has helped, and he has brought on. We had. I remember when we were just doing the audio side, we had one of your winners call in, and we spoke with him as well, who had lost, I think, nearly 100 pounds or something like that.
We've had quite a few members lose over 100 pounds. I have Josh Folk, who he's lost over 140. Now he's training for an Ironman. That's his next, journey, which, isn't for everybody, but it's just something that he's taken to heart because he can motivate others that way. And, right. And Josh is one of many stories. And And so I bribe people. It's really what I do is I say, look, if you go through this program for 40 days, I guarantee you're going to see results. Tell me what those results are, because that's going to motivate someone else to do it. And what I've been doing a lot of times with people is I have my own challenge point. So you tell me your story, I send you a challenge point. Those people that continue, sometimes I'll have drawings where I'll send hats and just don't quit is our new apparel that's out for this year. But the whole goal of that challenge is to build healthy habits. And you join the challenge. Right now it's on sale. It's like $30, but you can do the challenge 3, 4, 5 times. You have access to it for an entire year. So, and there's different levels of it. If you're just beginning and you're like, hey, I don't want to work out every week or every day, the level 1 challenge is you work out 3 days a week. Just pick 3 workouts. You try to drink 60 ounces of water, vegetables at least 3 times a day, then there's a couple other qualifications to that. Then you go to level 2 where you work out 4 times a week, and then you go to level 3 where you're following the entire complete program. But you can do that with this app. You can do the program over and over and over again. And just it actually chronicles your whole journey too. So now you can actually take a before picture and an after picture, and it stores it right there. It has all your measurements. It has your workouts, how you've progressed. So it's really I use these challenges to help people build healthy habits. And my intention is you do the challenge twice, then you go to one of my other programs. You go to the if you want to get more strength, you go to the Ultimate, or you go to the Hero X, and then next year you either do another challenge or another program, and you bring your crew involved in it. And that's kind of my intention, is that you don't have to follow FRF all the time, but take some of the concepts that you learn. And that's the cool part about fitness, right? There's so many different programs out there, but I'm going to do FRF for a little bit, and then I'm going to go do this for a little bit, and I'm going to train for a 5K, and then I'm going to come back and do FRF. And, the idea is that through the course of your career, you stay healthy.
Right. And that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. And I know a lot of times, a lot of members have fallen off because of COVID, because of the overtimes, because of the stress, and that, and to be honest, 100%, remember I told you that everything that I developed, I've done. Well, I'm on day 14 of my own challenge. And I do video vlogs every morning or every day after I finish my workout. And I talk about my own challenges. So I'm doing the 40-day challenge right now. I'd love to have people join me. They can, they can start any day they want. And then if they're looking for a little motivation, they can click on my crazy video and say, hey, yeah, I can relate to that, and continue on their journey. So
how do they access join up with you?
They can go to firerescuefitness.com, and if they go to the store, it's right there. It's the first thing that pops up. They can also get some apparel. I started to do apparel last year based off of some demands. We wanted it. So this year, our whole motto is just don't quit. And if you look at the way that it says just do it in white. Or if you're reading it backwards, It might say lust, ode, tie, whatever it reads. It's really just about, we all have these challenges, no pun intended there. And it's just a matter of, you have to find a way. As a first responder, you have to find a way to incorporate in fitness and mental health and nutrition. You have to, because by doing that, you improve who you are, not only as a person, but as a first responder. And you got to find a way to do it.
And I think I want to stress that more to anybody who is a volunteer or a paid on-call firefighter as well. Having been a volunteer and not having prepared for it, I fell into the opportunity. I was overweight. I was out of shape. There was no doubt about it. But I fell in love with what I was doing as a volunteer firefighter, and was down the station, since it was so close to my apartment, our apartment, that I was there, as much time as I could. Even though I was working 70 to 80 hours a week, I spent, several hours a week there. Even if it wasn't training, I went there to learn. And I was lucky enough that most of the leadership there, because there was only a few paid people, the rest of us were volunteers. I think there was like 6 paid people altogether, including the chief and the captain. And I would go down there, and as I got more into it and then had more training with the group, I knew that I wasn't in a physical condition that would help me do what I started having this passion for. So with the guy who was turned out to be our mentor, my buddy and my mentor, I started being a little bit more careful, and started doing a little bit more walking, and started doing a little more other stuff.
Yep.
And even though we didn't have a gym in this fire, it was a nice firehouse, but we would do stretches in the day room and just do little things. And I started feeling better, and I started feeling more confident about what I was doing. And
one thing leads to another. Exactly. One step in front of the other. Just don't quit, right? Like
for me, the greatest challenge I faced was the night I had to climb the top of our snorkel. We had a 75-foot snorkel on a Pierce extended apparatus. And when I joined, I told him I was acrophobic. And he said, "That's okay, Stephen, don't worry about it." And so finally came that training night when we had a climb thing. So I said to the chief, I said, "Chief, I don't know if I can do that." He goes, "Stephen, I know you can do it if you want to do it." And I knew how to do it. I had the belt on, buckled into the rail, climbed up slowly, made it to the top. We were at probably about a maybe about 50-degree angle, 50, 60-degree angle. Climbed to the top, hit the button on the intercom. "I'm here, Chief." He goes, "Good job, Steve. Good job, Steve." And that was it. Then all of a sudden, the turntable started to turn to the right, and the stick was going down. Then it was going up. Then it was turning to the left. And I said, "Chief, if you keep doing that, somebody better watch out below." He says,
"Right, I'm gonna puke on you."
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So, but I did it, and came down, and he gave me a big pat on the shoulder, and a bunch of the other firefighters did as well. The captain did, and for me, it was a major accomplishment. Now, I'm not fully over acrophobia, because I still have a little bit of a problem on a very high bridge over water or something like that. But I drive slowly, and I focus what's ahead of me into my mirrors.
Focus on the job, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that allowed me 2 years later at the State Fire College to. No, I didn't make the change. I didn't make the assignment. The chief did when he sent me there to do high-level rescue. So here I still was, a little pudgy kid, but went up 6 stories to the roof of the training building, and I was both a victim and a rescuer. And I learned how to tie the knots, and how to rappel and stuff like that. And when I finished that, I was like a new person. I couldn't believe that I had rappelled off a 6-story building, that I had been in a litter coming down, and I'd been a rescuer on a litter bringing somebody down from 6 stories. To me, that was like amazing, and that really changed my attitude as who I was as a firefighter. And it made
and about your health and your fitness.
Oh yeah, I was playing softball with the team. We played. We had 2 practices a week plus our game. I loved it. I was outside. I was breathing fresh air. I wasn't stuck in my office.
Well, and you start to live a little bit better. You start to, you improve, you gain that confidence. And that's just, and that's really what we're about. I mean, it doesn't matter if you are if you're going from, I call it from the leathers, and you want to get active, we can help. FRF is for that individual. It's for anybody who has been working out and wants to train more functionally. It's for those that have been training really, really consistently and maybe been doing one type of training, come on over to this side and train a little more functionally. And you'll see, like, and I always tell the story about, in my recruit academies, we don't have access to a lot of weight. We do a lot of body weight. We do a lot of work on stabilizing muscles and functional and core. And, a lot of my recruits go back to benching and, which you don't necessarily need to do. And they're like, "Hey man, my bench is through the roof." And we didn't bench for 12 weeks, right? It's just, we trained them more functionally. they worked a lot of those stabilizing muscles. They worked their mobility and flexibility, and now it's really transferring on to, performance improvement. But one thing you mentioned is by losing some weight, right? Like I know we all put on a couple pounds, and I think in the fire service on average is like 4 or 5 pounds a year. Most of us gain, but if you multiply that 5 years, you're 20 pounds heavier. You multiply that, 10 years, that could really get up to that 50 or 40 pounds heavier than when you came in the fire service. Well, the part about that too is that the gear, it adds 70 to 80 pounds. Well, now if you have somebody that's really, really heavy, they have the heavy gear, it's going to be hard to rescue. It's going to take more people to rescue if you do go down, right? In a fire scenario or in a training scenario even. And that puts everybody else at risk. And I tell this, there's a funny story of my very first company when I got on, and my full-time department was a RIT company. And we would do RIT operations training every Saturday. And there was a guy, there was two, we had station 3 and 4 would come together, we would train, and I was always, I was the new guy. So they would always make me rescue a great guy who, he was about 280 pounds at the time. So he weighed well over 300 with his gear on. And they would always go say, hey, Zam, you go rescue him. And I was like, and the poor guy, like I would, I'd try to get him up over me at one point to get him out of a windowsill. And he's just, bobbing on his head. And I felt so bad for him. Well, so my first 3 years I was on RIT company, and then I got transferred to a truck, and I saw him 6 months later and he was down 45 pounds. He looks great. And I look at him and I go, now you're going to lose 40 pounds when I don't have to drag your butt out of, every Saturday. And he said, you know what though? He said, I thought about that. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm not doing my coworkers, my brothers and my sisters any favors by being that heavy. As a matter of fact, I'm putting them in more of a dangerous situation. He said, it really dawned on me when you were trying so hard to get me out one day. And I thought, here's a guy who's in shape. He's dragging. And it's going to take 4 people and 2 more crews. And if I'm in a situation where I fell through the floor, more people might fall through the floor coming. He's just said it's just, there was an epiphany there. And now he manages his weight, and he's just, because of the stress that put on the system, having to try to go rescue it. And when you talk about family and brotherhood and sisterhood, that's what I think people have to get through their head. If you're at a weight and you're not looking after your own health, how are you really a brother or sister? I don't understand that, right? Like, you're putting everyone else in jeopardy because you're not managing or taking the time to manage your health. And I know this takes this very serious turn, and some people are like, oh, you're a little dramatic. Am I? And I'm just trying to reach out to people to think a little bit more about, what's really truly brotherhood and sisterhood. And I know that a lot of those people that, I'm not saying, everybody who's overweight isn't a good brother or sister. And I'm just saying, manage your health, manage your fitness. And people can do that being a couple pounds heavy. But when you get to that point where you're not managing your health and fitness, that's when you need to really start to think about everybody else around you and how it can stress and strain those within the system. So, yeah, great point. Hey folks, we didn't rehearse any of this stuff. No. Like, this is we're just talking, right?
And, I want to bring up one more analogy. I think the last time you were on, it was just after I created the analogy of the dominoes. And we've all seen on TV, some guy sets up 3,000 dominoes and the camera's on top, and you look down, you don't see crap. All you see is these little black things sticking up.
Yeah.
And he goes to the front, and the camera comes around, and he tips over the first domino, and all the dominoes fall down in order. And when the camera above takes the next shot, it's the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
But the question is, on the fire ground or on an emergency scene, do you want to be that first domino? Because if you are, let's say it's a working fire, and you got a roof team up there, you got a team with a hose to protect them. You're going to make entry, and you're the guy or the gal who's the loudest in the firehouse, always makes the jokes, always wants to be at the front, always at the front of the crowd. But you've already known that you're not feeling well, you're overweight, you've had a few little aches and pains in the upper shoulder and left arm and a little bit underneath
Heavy
the
breath.
collarbone.
Yeah.
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 And you said, "No, I'm going to do that." And you get on the nozzle, come to the door. The officer says, "No, go through." And as you go through, just before you open the nozzle, bam, you're down. You're that first domino. Now, every other job on the fire ground has just changed, no matter what anybody else is doing, because you're down. So now there's nobody going in with a hose in that front door because the guy backing you, the person firefighter backing you up, and the officer have to take care of you, drag your butt, call the RIT team and EMS over to you. Now, but when everybody else hears on the radio, because now everybody has a radio today. In my day, there was only two radios,
Right.
one built into the apparatus and one that the officer had.
Yep.
Everything else was air horns. That's how we communicated. But now everybody else hears that Mayday called on the radio. They want to drop what they're doing and come to help rescue Bob or Sally. The problem is that if the guys on that protection line for the roof team drop the line, there's nobody protecting the roof team. And they're up there now ready to vent without a hose line to protect them. Other people doing other jobs, plus the RIT team is called in. Everybody's job has just changed on that fire ground. And the chance of getting back to putting that fire out has dropped dramatically because the first domino fell and knocked everybody else down at the same time. Yep. And I keep saying in our PSAs and a lot of these interviews, and in my class, don't be the first dominant.
Don't be the first dominant. And we all understand stuff happens. You know, you could look after your health and, you know, and I just wrote an article for FR1 and it started out like eat right, exercise, still die. Well, yeah, sometimes crap happens, but you know, the whole thing in the fire service, we teach minimize the risk, and minimizing the risk starts with you every single day. You know, are you ready to do that just in case that you know, career fire happens? Well, you know, are you there? Are you ready physically? Are you ready mentally? And that's really about, you know, what we're talking about is minimizing risks. And, you know, we all understand stuff happens, but it's a lot easier to swallow when, you know, hey, they tried, they did everything they could. They checked their gear. They were, you know, they're very focused on their own health and wellness and fitness, and stuff still that happens, but it's a lot easier to swallow when that does, you know? So
yeah.
Yep,
it is. It does happen. And it's a fact, you know, one of the things we mentioned again earlier that I've gotten very involved with the PFAS movement in helping to get rid of it. And of course, it's not just in our gear. I mean, we know it's all over the ecosystem of this world now. They're finding it in water, finding it in ocean water, not just water where there have been problems with the AFFF and stuff like that. It's all over. But the fact is that even though we can't change out all our gear just yet, some of us are stuck in the 10-year program. Some of us the money isn't there. But the fact is that you can still minimize risk. And, you know, one of the things that kind of hurt about a month or so ago, there was another stair climb to remember our brothers from 9/11. And I think that's amazing. You know, it's not something I can do, but I applaud every one of our brothers and sisters who makes that climb. But you don't have to wear your gear to make the climb, because you're doing something physical to remember our brothers from 9/11. They don't care right now if you're wearing your gear or not when you climb those stairs at that stadium or the building. And because if you don't wear your gear, that's less exposure for you, because you're going to be sweating going up, climbing those stairwells. That opens your pores, and that means there's more of a chance if you're wearing your gear, that PFAS to get into your system. You want to minimize your risk. Honor their memory 1,000%, but minimize your risk when doing so. It's not going to hurt anybody, and everybody will understand. You're still making that climb. You're still giving of your time and your body and your effort to make that climb in their memory. Right. But you minimize your risk, just like we still try to do on the fire ground. You know, our officers guide us. Our officers guide us on the fire ground. They don't just want to throw us in, you know, to the bonfire and see if you can make it. They want you to put out the fire, make the rescue, make the grab, but to do it in the safest way possible. Yes, sometimes we do stretch that rubber band a little bit, and sometimes it's a little bit too tight. But that's who we are, and that's the mission we've accepted.
Yeah, some things you can understand, right? Some things, hey, that just happens. I mean, you're right. You want to be that domino. You have to, look at how can I minimize everything, and that's like, and I'm not very well versed in tactics and strategies, and my giving back is, look, I can help you minimize your risk by managing your fitness, managing your health, and even adding that mental health component in there, and trying to manage that. And when you look at that, like, hey, we all just try to do what we can do to improve the fire service, and like, that's what you're trying to do, that's what I'm trying to do. And I believe that by being healthy, and then if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, all right, you guys are right, I'm going to start tomorrow, I'm just going to take a walk, that's great. Do that for yourself, and then pass that on to someone else. And by that happening over and over and over again, 5 years from now, this culture is changing, and I see it. It is changing. It is. People are becoming more health conscious. Now we still have our days, right? But we are, we're making ourselves more aware of the PFAS. We're pushing for healthy, more healthy equipment, more healthy gear. Getting these are carcinogens out of there. We're pushing for mandatory fitness. We're pushing for, health annual medicals. And it takes time, in the fire service, it takes a lot longer than anybody ever probably wants, especially me, when it talks about fitness and health, but we are making progress. And that is the cool part. The fact that you and I are talking now for the fourth or fifth time says that we are, because people still want to hear it, and people are, it hopefully gets them to take action. And that's really all we're talking about. Action can be taking a walk every day, drinking more water. And we were going to talk a little bit about nutrition. Look, nutrition, to simplify it, do two things. If you listen to this podcast and you go have water, you've seen me drink quite a bit throughout this. Yep. Steve's got it too.
Okay. I drink five or six of these a day.
Sorry. Somebody's at my door. You can tell this is just natural life, right? I got a dog who really likes to bark at people, but she also
does ours.
Yeah, come here. But she also likes to get petted, so I can bribe her, but yeah, hydrate more, step number one. And step number two, don't think about cutting things out nutritionally. Think about adding more vegetables. That's it, right? Like, add more steps and activity through your day, step one, no pun intended. Drink more water, step two. Eat more veggies, step three. We didn't talk anything about burpees. We didn't talk about, hand cleans. We didn't talk about protein shakes. But those three things right there are really the springboard for better health. And then that moves into, all right, now let's see how much water we need to drink. So let's drink half of our body weight in ounces, at least aim for that. 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. 30-minute workouts 3 times a week. Okay, now 4, now 5. And that just keeps going, like climbing your aerial, step after step after step. Before you know it, you're there, right? And then you enjoy the view a little bit, and then you go back down and do it all over again. But that's really, that's the essence to improving your health. Right. And especially improving your fitness. In FRF, we have this challenge to get people to do that. But they don't have to join the challenge. I'll help anybody. And you know this, right? Like, they can reach out to me on firerescuefitness.com, contact and say, hey, I like this program, but how can I make it more functional? I'll reply to that email, and I'll give you some great suggestions. It's just, any way I can help out, that's what I'm about.
I know. And listen, you helped my daughter, our older daughter, a couple of years ago when she first hurt her back, and I wanted to tell her something to do, and she didn't know where to turn. She was just moved to Boston, and you gave her the foam rolls. Yeah. And sure enough, she went out and got, she was planning to do some yoga stretching anyway. So she got a yoga mat, and she got the kind that would roll up, and she was able to start using that as the foam roll to help her with her back. And she still has that. And every time there's a little tweak, that's one of the things she jumps to. She says, I'm going to go back to the foam roll and help me. And, that when I reached out to you for that, it was right there. I gave her the idea, and she jumped with it, and it made a difference.
That's
And
awesome.
it still makes a difference. So
Yeah.
that's a simple example of what Zam just said, is that you don't have to join a competition. You don't have to buy into a big program or anything like that. You have a question, send them the question. Contact them from the website, firerescuefirst.com.
Fitness.
Fire Rescue Fitness,
Yeah.
firerescuefitness.com,
Yep.
and hit the contact button. Ask them the question. I'll guarantee you're going to get an answer
Yep.
without a doubt.
Now, if it might take me a day if I'm in the stations,
Right.
It's a little delay, but that's kind of what I started this for, and it's really how I'm trying to give back, and and I'll set myself up for another one, because I have some other stuff that I'm working on developing too, as far as fitness testing for the fire service. I think that we've actually got that all wrong, and I think that's a whole nother podcast, but we could talk a little bit more off. But I always love our conversations, my friend. I really do. I always get fired up, and I hope we can reach a couple people here throughout the world, right? Like you said, 41 countries people
41 countries
awesome.
in 2021. Yeah. 2021.
Awesome.
And it is. We're very proud of it. Not anything that we ever expected. Of course, I also did, when you Google your podcast and you find these platforms that you never ever heard of, and they're foreign too. I mean, we're on foreign platforms that I have no idea. They just picked up the RSS feed and connect them. They send out the podcast. I mean, New Zealand and Russia and China and South America. It's amazing, because, I don't translate, so they're all in English. But I just think it's the same thing what you just said. I started this because I was pushed into it by some firefighter friends on social media, but I do it to my way of giving back to the profession. And again, we can be professional volunteers, we can be professional career, but no matter what, as firefighters, we need to be professionals. And this is my way of giving back to the profession that I loved. My time was cut short because of an injury, but I've loved doing it. And that's what's important to me. And that's why I look for great guests who will educate and entertain our viewers and listeners, And we're
probably
lucky,
a little too guilty of entertaining sometimes.
No, not at all. I think I see in every guest that we've had who can share that entertainment side of it, it's still part of the learning experience. That's the key. You can have somebody just get up there. We've all been there at a lecture where after the first 10 words, we're bored out of our mind.
Yeah.
There's no manifestation. There's no good presentation. It's just, hi, I am Captain Bill.
Right.
And if you're asleep, that's it. But when you teach, and having, next month, we'll make 57 years that I've been an educator. When you teach with desire and passion, you can do anything to do it. You can do that entertainment, at the same time, and you're still teaching people.
Yeah.
And that's the key. You're still getting a message across without them thinking that they're sitting in a classroom. And moving to the Zoom platform for us, which was a good, I wouldn't say it was a necessity when it first popped up. When I first discovered Zoom was April of 2020, when our daughter in Boston couldn't come down for the Passover holiday.
Right. Everybody was kind of thrown into this, like, what do we do?
So
how do we still connect?
We brought her in, and then I started thinking, well, wait a second, I could do this for the podcast as well.
Yeah.
And that's when we kicked it in. I think it was the end of April or beginning of May of 2020. And I think it gives those who view the podcast on our channel on YouTube, 5 Alarm Task Force Corp, gives them a view of our guests that they don't necessarily pick up when they're just listening on the audio podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because they see the energy, they see the fun. I mean, even in the podcast that we just released last weekend with the Battalion Chief Jacob Johnson, Captain Nick Peppert, and Lieutenant Jason Liska, which was all about a combination of their passions, which is do your damn job, which is Jacob Johnson, meaning you've got to be a mentor in the fire service. Once you don't even have to be an officer, But after you got a couple of years in, you have to be a mentor. You have to be able to help other people and share and teach. And Nick Peppert and Sean Duffy with Make Do, not make do, D-U-E, make do with what you have, because 80% of us, they concentrate on suburban firefighting. And 80% of us basically serve in suburban, and we don't always have the luxury of knowing that there's 5 engines and 3 trucks coming behind us on a call. Sometimes we're lucky if we get 3 people on a piece of apparatus to make that run. And you have to make do with what you have. And Jason is, the can man, the reality of what it takes to be a firefighter, paramedic today, and the tasks that we have to face and how we prepare for those tasks in training. And he's a great trainer, works at the State Fire Academy. And, there was some salty language, but it was the passion that was coming out. And when you could see that passion on the video, because when I edited the video and watched that to get ready for launch on YouTube, and then I edited the audio, as much as I enjoyed it, it was still fun to listen to, but watching the people smile and laugh. And
Banter sometimes is the most, I think, kind of, watching firefighters banter together is sometimes very entertaining. My parents always say that. They're like, when you get around with your crew members, it's like joke after joke after joke. And, and then you make a point and then it's joke after joke and, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. When we welcome a new guest, I always tell them, and I learned this from the late Chief Bruno and Chief Ruben, who has been a great supporter of the show and a wonderful helper. Because when I was concerned about, I said, I can't talk to Chief Bruno. He says, why not? I said, he's Chief Bruno. I was reading about him when I was just starting the fire department in 77, reading his articles in Firehouse. He said, he's just another firefighter. Talk with him like you're talking at the kitchen table in the firehouse. And that's what I learned. So I tell my guests, no worries. It's just sitting at the kitchen table at the firehouse. We're going to just talk with each other.
People don't have to know that you just have Bermuda shorts on underneath there. That's just our secret. But I just, right? They don't need to know.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Zam, this has been another great podcast. Folks, again, remember, you can go to firerescuefitness.com, get all the information you need. If you want to contact Zam, you can get it right through the contact tab on the menu. He's there to help you in any way to help you improve yourself and take care of yourself better. And if he doesn't have the answer, he has the resources to get you to your answer. And that's, I think, is one of the outstanding resources that Zam has provided since I've met him online. And again, it was, I reached out, I read an article in Firehouse. I found his email. I asked him, hey, I do a podcast. Would you like to come and talk about fitness? And boom, he was there. And that was the thing. He always has expressed that point that if he doesn't have the answer, he's not going to leave you hanging. He's going to find the resource to get you that answer you need. And I think that if you're looking at personal betterment, physically, emotionally, and mentally, that's what you have to look for. You have to look for someone who doesn't have to be the know-it-all, but knows enough to help you and then help you get additional help.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I always tell people I only got 4 brain cells and I can't remember. I only know what I know, and I can't lie because then I'd have to remember what I told you, exactly. And that's right. But there, with fitness and nutrition, even the fire service, just so much. There's so much that we are responsible for. You can't know it all. And once you start to, really look at it and I look at it as if I don't know it, it's an opportunity for me to learn. So I'll tell you, hey, I'll look into this if it's, I appreciate that and appreciate the support. Thank you for you always comment and like on my social media stuff. And you've been a very, very good friend and advocate for what we're trying to do in our mission with FRF. So I can't thank you enough for your time and having me on.
It's our honor and our privilege to get this message out to our brothers and sisters, because we want them all healthy. We want them to be able to do the job. They love doing this job. I mean, this is a calling. People don't just, say, I'm not going to be a bank teller anymore. I'm going to be a firefighter. because
Mhm.
I don't like
Yeah.
having to count the bills and stuff like that. No, there is a calling that draws us to it. You know, we just celebrated this weekend the 50th anniversary of the TV show Emergency.
Yeah, I
And,
saw that.
you
Yep. It
know,
was pretty
and
interesting. Yep.
it really was. And the fact was that when my good friend Todd LeDuc from LifeScan Wellness Centers
Yep.
um, posted it, you know, I didn't hesitate to say it was the impetus when that opportunity happened to come around in North Carolina. That show was the impetus that
Yeah. Yeah.
that got me to say
Yep.
yes and to do it.
It's still on in our firehouse. Like every lunch hour, we have a couple of lieutenants that still watch it, and we chuckle a little bit, but it's great. You know, it kind of now there's Chicago fire and all those that.
Yeah.
You know, that was emergency was real, man. That was a real
Well,
first start.
I think that was, you know, as I've said before, Jack Webb, an RA senator, went to LA County and said, look, we don't want to script every call. Share your call history with us, and then we'll write around those, and we'll put in what we need for the show. But we love the idea of this new thing, this paramedic, whatever it is, with these guys, but they're still firefighters. And I think one of the great examples they showed in Emergency was that on any working fire, initially, Johnny and Roy put on their gear, put on their SCBA, and were ready to fight fire.
Mm-hmm.
If the captain changed their thing to a rescue or to a revival, something like that, that's when they went into paramedic mode. But they were still, even though they drove a different vehicle, they were still firefighters first.
Yep.
And so
still today, in a lot of departments, my department, they are too.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's important that, you know, that drove an entire generation into fire rescue. There's no doubt about. And I think it's still, even as you say, they still watch it. And when, you know, if I'm around when it's on, I think it's, I don't know, Cozy TV or one of those, or Me TV.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's on. Yeah.
But I still enjoy watching it. And I have the book, the whole history of the show in my library, because I learned so much watching that show. And now watching it after the fact and after my service, it still reminds me of what I did and why I did it, was because I saw what LA County was doing. And I said, man, that is, to be able to do two things in the fire service to help people, that's amazing. And, you know, I just think it was some of the best 8 years of my life doing that
That's
job.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. If someone's listening and they don't know what we're talking about, that's your assignment. Besides getting back and doing the fitness things that we were talking about, and health and wellness things, go walk on the treadmill and watch an old episode of Emergency, right? And that's part of your assignment after listening to that.
That'd be great.
There you go.
All right, Sam. Thank you so much. Great podcast. Good to see you again. Glad everything is
good to see you,
well,
my friend.
Okay, up there. And again, folks, we just want to remind you that you can go to firerescuefitness.com, get all the information you want about anything to do with the fitness programs, the various programs that Zam has for you, available to you. And I can tell you that from all his appearances, I know that's it's made a difference, even in its earliest stages, made a difference in people's lives who are in fire rescue and EMS, and probably law enforcement too. You probably have law enforcement people that you've worked with as well. And so
they could definitely use, like, just, you know, not use it, but I mean, just from the stress relief, just the fitness side of stuff, you know, it's important, imperative for them too. Yeah.
Sure.
You know, nurses and doctors too. I actually include them as first responders now.
We do. Yeah.
You know, yep. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about with functional fitness really, you know, it includes them, because they're moving patients, they're moving people, they're anaerobically having to exert, you know, maybe not so much doctors and nurses as much as police and fire, but yeah, I mean, it does transfer to different modalities, and you know, first responders in general, we've been stressed, and we need to really focus on ourselves and our health. And again, thank you for the opportunity, and always a pleasure, my friend.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime. All right, folks, if you're watching the video, that's going to conclude the video. If you're listening to the audio, again, you know what's coming up. We'll take a brief break, a few public service announcements, and we'll be right back. Again, my thanks to Aaron Zamzow with Fire Rescue Fitness, and we'll be back with another podcast very, very soon. Thanks for tuning in. As always, stay safe and stay well. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.